Imagine making a career out of being the perfect homemaker. Only you can't cook, you don't have a husband, and your house exists entirely on paper. Now picture that fantasy crashing into reality when a war hero shows up expecting Christmas dinner. What follows isn't just chaos. It's a hilarious portrayal of the pressures to live up to our own lies. And there's a Bugs Bunny connection. Hello to all the classic people who are returning. I'm glad you're back. I want to welcome any new visitors and let you know that there will be spoilers ahead. Today on Classic Movie Review, we are taking on Christmas in Connecticut, 1945. Before I delve into the numbers, I want to say that this is a funny movie and a very good Christmas film. Stanwyck is very funny, as are Sidney Greenstreet, S.C. Sackle, and Una O'Connor. On IMDb.com, the film has a 7.3 rating, which seems a little low to me. On RottenTomatoes.com, the film has a very good 89% on the tomato meter and a 75% audience score on the popcorn meter. It seems you can't make 25% of the population happy. Variety film critic William Brogdon wrote in a July 18, 1945 review, quote, "Story is lightweight, but well-polished situations, direction, and playing keeps it in high gear most of the way for nifty returns. Some of the gags cut rather close to the Hazian frown, but since they spring from nature, are good for solid roars," unquote. Actors. The great Barbara Stanwyck showed her diverse talents as Elizabeth Lane, a World War II era Martha Stewart. I previously reviewed 5 Stanwyck movies on the channel, but I've recently released a video featuring 7 more Stanwyck movies to watch. There's a link in the description. Sidney Greenstreet was pretty good in the role of powerful media mogul Alexander Yardley. He delivered a few funny lines and didn't seem out of place in the role. Greenstreet was first covered in what was his first film role, The Maltese Falcon, 1941, and there's a link in the description. Native Hungarian S.C. Sackle played immigrant restaurant owner Felix Basanek. Sackle made a significant contribution to the humor in this film. He was also first covered in the great film Casablanca, 1942, and there's a link below. Funny lady Una O'Connor played Nora, the housekeeper. O'Connor was first covered in the role that I associate her with the most, being terrified by the monster in Bride of Frankenstein, 1935, and there's a link in the description. Character actor Walter Baldwin had a small uncredited role as Sheriff Potter. Dennis Morgan played war hero Jefferson Jones. Morgan was born in Wisconsin in 1908. He began acting and sang in high school productions. After high school, Morgan attended Carroll College, graduating in 1930. He worked in the theater in Chicago and toured in the Midwest as an actor. Morgan also worked as a sports announcer on the radio. He began appearing in films as early as 1929, but he was first noticed in The Great Ziegfeld, 1936. He was quite successful in these films, but he truly became a star after joining Warner Brothers. He was in The Return of Dr. X, 1939 with Humphrey Bogart, there's a link below, The Fighting 69th with James Cagney, there's a link below, and Kitty Foley, 1940 with Ginger Rogers. Morgan continued to get good roles and was extremely popular in musicals using his polished singing voice. Some of his best-known roles include God Is My Co-Pilot, 1945, today's film Christmas in Connecticut, 1945, My Wild Irish Rose, 1947, and It's a Great Feeling, 1949. Morgan stopped acting in the 1950s, but occasionally accepted episodic roles. When film roles dried up, Morgan began working on television. In his later years in life, Morgan became a successful businessman in the holding business industry. He also performed as part of an opera company, appearing in productions such as Faust and Carmen. Morgan died in 1994. Story. This movie doesn't begin like A Christmas Tale. It begins with a damn Nazi U-boat stalking and torpedoing a U.S. Navy destroyer. Jefferson Jones, Dennis Morgan, and another man float in a rubber life raft, suffering from dehydration and starvation. Jones begins hallucinating that he is being served delicious food at a table floating on a life raft. The other man on the raft, Sinkowitz, Frank Jinks, wakes Jones and ends the vision. They've been adrift for 18 days. Jones keeps talking about food and they wake up in a military hospital. Sinkowitz is getting regular food, but Jones is on a restricted diet. Jones reads a recipe for Christmas dinner by renowned lifestyle author Elizabeth Lane, Barbara Stanwyck. Jones's diet is restricted because he had given the last of their food to Sinkowitz. Nurse Mary Lee, Joyce Compton, and Jones read more of Elizabeth's recipes and articles. Elizabeth Lane also talks about her husband and child. Sienkiewicz convinces Jones to flirt with the nurse to get better food. It works, but Mary Lee is ready to get married. As Jones gets closer to discharge, he gives Mary Lee the soft brush off. Mary Lee thinks it's because Jones has never had a real home. Another nurse suggests that Mary Lee give him a real home for Christmas so she can hook him. Mary Lee seeks help from publisher Alexander Yardley, Sydney Greenstreet. Yardley is Elizabeth Lane's publisher. Mary Lee writes Yardley and reminds him that she was the nurse who previously cared for his sick granddaughter. The letter arrives at Yardley's posh mansion. Yardley is informed that his daughter and granddaughters can't come for Christmas and he will be alone. After reading the letter, Yardley contacts Elizabeth's editor, Dudley Beecham Robert Shane. Yardley is already concocting a plan to spend Christmas with Jones and Elizabeth at her country home. Yardley orders Elizabeth to be in his office at 4 p.m. Elizabeth is shown writing her food and lifestyle articles from a small but not dingy apartment. She describes things, people, and food that don't exist. A large package arrives, and it is a nice fur coat. More about that in the conclusion. Felix Basinac, S.C. Sackle, brings her lunch from a restaurant as she can't cook at all. Felix mentions living in Budapest. She has helped Felix build his restaurant, and he is the brains behind all the recipes Elizabeth publishes. Felix fusses at Elizabeth about buying an expensive coat. Dudley arrives as Felix leaves. Dudley delivers the news about the Christmas visit to the farm in Connecticut that doesn't exist. Yardley doesn't know that Elizabeth is making up her whole life. Her and Dudley concoct a plan to stop the visit. John Sloan, Reginald Gardner, arrives at the apartment. He's a suitor who has long been friend-zoned. She tells Sloan that Yardley thinks she has a farm, a husband, and a child. Elizabeth meets with Yardley and he refuses all of her excuses. He says he will also be attending the Christmas celebration. Yardley informs Mary Lee that Jones has been invited to the holiday. Felix is working in his busy restaurant as Dudley and Sloan sit across the bar. Elizabeth arrives and lets him know she couldn't deter Yardley. Sloan again proposes to Elizabeth while Felix wisecracks. Out of desperation, thinking she's going to lose her job, Elizabeth agrees to marry Sloan. In the conversation that follows, Dudley finds that Sloan has a farm in Connecticut. Dudley pushes for the pair to marry. Elizabeth agrees to go along with the charade to save Dudley's job, even though she plans on really marrying Sloan. Husband and farm taken care of? Now all she has to do is cook and find a baby. Felix agrees to go on the trip and do the cooking. He knows a real marriage to Sloan would be catastrophic for Elizabeth. The crew arrives at a beautiful snow-covered farm in Connecticut by horse-drawn sleigh. Felix is hostile to Sloan's housekeeper, Nora, Una O'Connor. Sloan shows Elizabeth a baby that Nora takes care of for a defense plant worker. Judge Crothers, Dick Elliott, arrives to perform the marriage ceremony. Elizabeth shows every sign of cold feet. Felix starts fussing at Nora about her cooking and the state of the kitchen. The 5 people in the house gather for the wedding. But before they begin, a sleigh carrying Jones arrives. The arrival is 2 hours early, so they stop the wedding. Jones is shocked when he learns that Elizabeth is much younger and prettier than he had imagined. The lightning bolts of love strike close to Elizabeth and Jones. Jones brought her a rocking chair, as many others have, as she mentioned wanting one in one of her articles. He gives her a class on how to rock. The infant girl wakes, and Elizabeth has no idea what to do. Jones goes with her to help wash the baby. Jones knows a lot about children because he has a sister with children. Elizabeth is happy for Jones to take care of the child. Suddenly, Yardley arrives, and now Sloan must keep him away from Judge Crothers. Sloan introduces himself as Elizabeth's husband. When Yardley takes one of his drinks, Felix calls him Fat Man. Of course, that's a reference to the Maltese Falcon 1941, where Greenstreet played Caspar Gutman and was referred to as the Fat Man by Humphrey Bogart. Sackle and Greenstreet worked together on Casablanca in 1942. Felix sends the judge out the window to avoid Yardley. That evening, Jones sings Christmas hymns and plays the piano while Elizabeth decorates the tree. Jones continues singing with his Irish tenor voice, "The Wish That I Wish Tonight." The Bugs Bunny reference is coming. Yardley tries to convince Sloan to have another baby with Elizabeth to boost circulation. The judge calls to say he will be back in 15 minutes to perform the marriage. Sloan ushers everyone off to bed. Nora is upset that Elizabeth and Sloan went into the same bedroom the pair not being married. She is already packed to leave as Elizabeth and Sloane come back downstairs for the marriage ceremony. Judge Carruthers arrives, but they have to hide him as someone comes downstairs. Yardley runs into Jones, and they have a midnight snack in the kitchen. Elizabeth goes to get Nora and Felix for witnesses. She stops by the kitchen to visit. Yardley plans on watching Elizabeth cook breakfast. Elizabeth and Jones go outside to put the cow away. Jones had earlier asked Yardley if he thought Elizabeth was happily married. Outside, Elizabeth tries to find out about Jones's love interest. He confesses he's attracted to Elizabeth. Elizabeth tries to kiss Jones, but he's not the type to kiss a married woman or a woman he thinks is married. More hijinks ensue. Sloane lets Elizabeth know that the judge will return in the morning. Early in the morning, Felix begins teaching Elizabeth to cook. It's a catastrophe. Another working mother drops off her baby boy as the mother of the girl baby is off that day. Yardley comes into the kitchen, but Elizabeth shunts him off on Nora. Sloane takes Elizabeth to the study where the judge is waiting. Yardley finds the ceremony, but is taken in by the story that it's an annual Christmas rededication. Felix reports that the baby swallowed his watch. Yardley notices that the baby is different. The judge leaves, and Felix reveals his watch, admitting that he made up the story to stop the wedding. Sloane gets frustrated and goes to tell Yardley that the setup is a fake. Before he can tell, Yardley offers him a job as the editor for a new Build Your Own Home section. Sloane decides to keep quiet. In the kitchen, Elizabeth is coerced into flipping a flapjack. By miracle, she does it successfully. Homer Higginbottom from the local Christmas Entertainment Committee arrives. He invites everyone to the dance that evening.
Good morning. Mr. Sloane?
Yes?
How do you do?
How do you do?
I'm Homer Higginbottom. I represent the Christmas Entertainment Committee of Stanfield.
That night, people arrive at the hall by horse-drawn sleighs. The dance is a square dance. Aren't they a bit far to the east and north for that? Anyway, Elizabeth and Jones have a great time dancing as Sloane pitches ideas to Yardley for the editor job. Yardley finally tells him that the job is contingent on Elizabeth having another baby.
Yes, Sloane, but remember this whole proposition depends on that other matter that I discussed with you.
Well, what other matter, Mr. Yardley?
We've got to beat American housekeeping to that new baby.
Yardley is becoming concerned about how Elizabeth and Jones are acting towards each other. Yardley and Sloane are called to begin selling war bonds. Elizabeth and Jones put on their coats and go outside for a winter walk. Yardley watches from the windows. Jones says that this is his last night in town. Elizabeth has on the wrong shoes, so they sit in one of the sleighs.
Milady, your carriage.
Oh, we couldn't.
It's just parked here. Nobody will mind.
The horse begins walking as soon as they cover themselves with the blanket. Yardley is trailing along in the snow beside a split-rail fence. Eventually, he falls into a small ravine. Elizabeth and Jones continue to discuss and negotiate potential scenarios and haven't noticed that they've been moving. Before Nora leaves for her sister's house, she tells Felix that the mother will be coming for the baby boy later.
I'm going to spend the night at my sister's. Mrs. Gertzig worked overtime tonight, and she'll be coming along pretty soon for her baby. If she cries, you better change her.
Mrs. Gersick?
On the road, Sheriff Potter, Walter Baldwin, pulls the sleigh over and arrests Elizabeth and Jones for sleigh theft.
Stealing my sleigh for joyride, huh? Well, get out.
Oh, we didn't steal it.
That's what you say. You're 4 miles from where Mr. Harper parked it. Tell that to the judge, will you?
You mean you're arresting us?
That's right, lady.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Sorry.
Later, the mother comes for her baby, but Felix is passed out. She takes the baby, and Yardley sees her leaving with it. Yardley calls the police and says a baby has been kidnapped. Felix tries to calm him, but Yardley won't accept any explanation. When the cops and newspaper men arrive, Yardley offers a $25,000 reward to find the baby. In the morning, Sheriff Potter brings Elizabeth and Jones home, having straightened out the misunderstanding. The pair sheepishly enter the house to find Yardley, Sloane, and a gaggle of reporters and cops sleeping in the living room. Yardley defends Elizabeth, saying she has been out looking for her baby. After Yardley clears the reporters out, he begins chewing Elizabeth out for cavorting all night while her baby has been kidnapped. She admits she's fallen in love with Jones. Elizabeth tries to explain, but Yardley interrupts, making the story seem nefarious. Then, the mother of the baby boy and the baby girl arrive with their infants in hand. The ladies leave their babies and head for the war plant to work. Elizabeth confesses that she is not married, never lived on a farm, doesn't have any children, and can't cook. Yardley thinks he will be disgraced and calls the police to end the search. He fires Elizabeth before storming off. Sloane takes it pretty well that their marriage will not take place. He is more interested in getting featured in the magazine. When Elizabeth smashes a figurine in frustration, Felix and Jones enter the room. The doorbell rings and Nurse Mary Lee arrives to see Jones. The news that Jones's fiancée is here crushes Elizabeth. She says goodbye to Jones and leaves to pack her belongings. When Mary Lee and Felix are alone, she tells him that she married Sienkiewicz after Jones left. Yardley is led to the kitchen by his nose. Felix defends Elizabeth and tricks Yardley into thinking she has another job offer. Yardley says he will give Elizabeth a raise. Yardley tells Sloane he is not interested in their contract and will be doubling Elizabeth's salary. Yardley says he will give Sloane a contract if Elizabeth stays with the magazine, but he wants the pair to marry. Elizabeth rebels and throws Yardley out. Jones is very happy when he is finally told that nobody is married. He enters Elizabeth's room and gives her a big kiss. He says he's now the type who kisses married women. He proposes and kisses her again. Elizabeth slaps Jones's face because she thinks he is engaged to Mary Lee. This forces her to confess that she was never married. Jones tells her he is free and they kiss again. Felix says he will get the judge, and Yardley warns Jones that she can't cook. Yardley laughs and says, "What a Christmas." Thank you for taking the time to listen. If you want more, be sure to subscribe, hit the like, and ring the bell. You can support the show by using any of the affiliate links in the description. Conclusion. I called Elizabeth a Martha Stewart because that's my frame of reference. In reality, Elizabeth is based on Gladys Tabor. Tabor wrote a popular column for Family Circle magazine and lived on Still Meadow Farm in Connecticut. When the film was released, it was only 3 months after VE Day. That's the end of World War II in Europe. The release was only 3 days after VJ Day, the end of World War II in the Pacific Theater. These dates reflected the Christmas film was oddly released in August. However, this film did very well at the box office as it was the first film to capitalize on post-war enthusiasm. Studio head Jack Warner was on a cost-cutting jag at the time this movie was made. Sloane's office was part of the set for Bringing Up Baby 1938. The mink coat that Stanwyck, as Elizabeth, bought for herself was the same coat that Joan Crawford wore in Mildred Pierce 1945. If you're interested in Joan Crawford, give a listen to my interview with author Scott Iman about his new book, Joan Crawford, The Face of a Woman. There's a link in the description. The final money-saving action was that the sleigh ride was filmed on a soundstage with snowdrifts made from snowflakes. Stanwyck made 2 more films with director Peter Godfrey. The second is The Two Mrs. Carols 1947, and it's a dynamite film. The third is Cry Wolf 1947, a film noir thriller with Errol Flynn. S.C. Sackle generally had a lot of comedic dialogue in films, such as telling time as 10-0 Watch in Casablanca 1942. As Felix in this film, he had more fun with translation. One sentence he repeated often was hunky-dunky, a malformed version of hunky-dory, which means fine, 6'7". The expression was first recognized as used in 1866. However, the origin of dory is unknown. I like hunky-dunky better. Sidney Greenstreet, who usually plays a villain, had a few comedic bits in this film. However, they were usually based on his terrorizing or crushing someone because of his powerful role. Greenstreet is always great, no matter what he's in. In the realm of what the hell were they thinking, this movie was remade for television in 1992. It starred Diane Cannon in the Stanwyck role and Army veteran Chris Christopherson in the war hero role. Arnold Schwarzenegger directed the movie, and I have nothing else to say about it. At last, the Bugs Bunny fact. The studio animation department took the song that Jones sang, The Wish That I Wish Tonight, and used it extensively in the Looney Tunes cartoon series. However, it was almost exclusively used when Bugs was in drag.
Did you ever find Bugs Bunny attractive when he'd put on a dress and play a girl bunny?
No.
Neither did I. I was just asking.
World famous short summary, be nice to your nurse. If you enjoyed the show and want more, please consider giving me a like, subscribe, or commenting. It really helps the show get found. As a technical note, references and citations are listed for each show on the site at classicmovierev.com. The site contains a wealth of information. Beware the Moors. All right, in a minute, a couple of boxes are going to pop up. One is a similar film review to this Christmas movie, and the other is a list of my holiday films that I've reviewed.